Welcome to the Explainer. If you've ever felt completely stuck trying to learn Python, or honestly any programming language for that matter, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating, hands-on pedagogical strategy. It's called the Helsinki method, and it literally flips the traditional way of learning to code completely on its head. We're going to explore exactly how it works and how it manages to transform absolute beginners into highly capable developers through a totally new paradigm of learning. So let's just start with a really simple question. Are you watching or are you coding? I mean, it cuts right to the heart of why so many aspiring developers get hopelessly stuck in what seasoned programmers call tutorial hell. You know the feeling, right? You sit back, you binge hours of instructional content, and you feel like an absolute coding genius watching someone else build an app. But then, you stare completely blankly at your own monitor when it's time to build your project. You feel super productive, but actually, you aren't practicing the skill at all. Okay, let's dive into this trap because it is incredibly common. The harsh reality is that passive observation completely fails to build actual technical proficiency. It just gives you this illusion of competence. Think about it. It's exactly like trying to learn how to ride a bicycle or play the piano by just watching a documentary about it. Sure, you might understand the physics or the music theory, but without your hands on the keyboard, your brain simply isn't building the necessary connections. Software development is not a spectator sport, folks, and passive observation simply won't get you across the finish line. Right, so how do we break out of that trap and actually learn? Well, that brings us to our core focus for today, the Helsinki method. Pioneered by the University at Helsinki's MOOC, that's their massive open online course, this approach is the ultimate solution to the whole passive learning problem. It's a highly active, totally hands-on pedagogical strategy designed specifically to rip you right out of your comfort zone. So instead of letting you lean back and consume information, this curriculum demands that you lean forward and create. It essentially forces you to engage with the material from day one. Writing over watching. Seriously, write that down. That is the absolute core philosophy of this entire curriculum. Every single minute you spend watching an instructional clip, looking at a diagram, or reading a textbook absolutely must be massively outweighed by the time you spend actually writing original code. Look, if you aren't typing, you aren't learning. It's that simple. The MOOC approach is built entirely around this practice-oriented model, taking you directly from the theory straight into immediate hands-on execution. Now, passive observation feels super comfortable, right? It feels safe, but it fundamentally lacks the friction required for technical proficiency. Active coding, on the other hand, well, that requires you to struggle. You have to experiment. You have to solve problems. And the Helsinki methodology proves that true mastery means crossing over from that passive observation into active problem solving. It is exactly that direct, sometimes frustrating engagement that actually wires your brain to think like a real developer. So here is exactly how that plays out in practice with the Helsinki mastery steps. First up, active coding, getting your hands dirty immediately. Next is solving practical challenges. We're not talking about abstract math puzzles here. We mean working on real, tangible tasks. And finally, continuous practice. Notice how utilitarian these steps are? In this framework, the primary vehicle for your education isn't a lecture. Writing original code is the education. The literal act of typing out the logic, running it, and seeing the results, that's the very thing that cements the knowledge permanently in your brain. But to really thrive with this hands-on strategy, we need to completely shift your mindset. See, beginners often treat a programming language like some sacred ancient manuscript that has to be perfectly memorized before they're even allowed to use it. But the Helsinki curriculum pushes you to treat Python simply as a functional tool. Think about it. You wouldn't memorize the entire user manual of a hammer before hitting a nail, would you? Of course not. You pick it up, you swing it, and you learn exactly how it works by actually using it. We have got to move away from treating Python as a rigid collection of syntax rules that you just memorize by rote. Instead, think of it as learning to use a functional tool designed to build real solutions. When you focus on solving practical challenges, the syntax naturally locks into your memory, mostly because you're using it in context, not just reciting it off a flashcard. The language becomes a means to an end, rather than the end itself. You might actually hear this referred to in academic circles as a utilitarian approach, and all that really means is that your entire education is grounded in usefulness. Software development education must be grounded in utilitarian problem solving. Why are you learning Python? Because you want to do something with it, right? Automate a task, build a website, analyze some data. The faster you start writing code to address those specific practical challenges, the faster you achieve real mastery. Ultimately, the output is the objective. Now, this active approach inevitably leads to what many consider the single most frustrating part of coding. But guess what? It's actually the most essential: debugging. Look, when you adopt a hands-on pedagogical strategy and start writing original code from day one, your code is going to break. You are going to get errors. Most beginners see that wall of red error text and totally panic, thinking they've failed. But under the Helsinki method, those errors are the exact moments where the real learning actually begins.
So the crucial point is that debugging is an essential process, not a roadblock. It's the necessary crucible for building true technical proficiency. When your code fails and you have to dig in, figure out why, and actually fix it, you are actively engaging with the core logic of the language. This combination of continuous practice and relentless debugging is what ultimately fosters a deeper, permanent mastery of software development. You aren't just learning how to write code, you're learning how to fix code. And honestly, that is what real developers do all day long.
Which leads us to a final, absolutely vital question to leave you with. What real problem will you solve with Python today? Seriously, don't wait until you feel ready to start because you never will. The whole point of the Helsinki approach is learning by doing. So right after you close this explainer, go open up your code editor, start applying what we've talked about today, prioritize writing over watching, embrace the debugging process, and let the code itself be your teacher.